Roboute Guilliman settled heavily into his new throne. The primarch had dispatched all of his attendants and advisors, even sending his onagon to wait outside the sanctum. At last, he could allow a little of his sorrow, trauma, and pain to show, and Guilliman let his mask drop with a sigh of relief. Whatever had been done to bring him back, it had left the primarch with a constant gnawing ache that radiated from deep within. He suspected that the pain would never leave him. Physical hurts were the least of Guilliman's troubles. One by one, the primarch had spoken with each of the Celestians, the lords of the Ultramarines, and even of Rain, of the Eldari. Days had been spent in deep, earnest conversation, Guilliman using every iota of his statesman guile to set his guests at ease, to tease from them as much information as he could, and to hide his reaction to their words. Guilliman had thanked each of his visitors for their insight and their service to the Imperium, inwardly assessing each of his guests and showing them whatever aspect of his personality was best to render them sympathetic and valuable. Though he had not shown it, each fresh revelation struck the primarch like a cannon shell. He was exhausted from staving off bewilderment and horror, hollowed out by pain. Guilliman groaned and placed his head in his hands, his new suit of armor hissing and humming with the motion. "Millennia have passed," he murmured, unsure to whom he spoke. He knew only that he had to vocalize his situation before it drove him mad. Not for the first time since his return, Guilliman wished for one of his brothers to speak with. They, at least, might have understood. "Thousands of years," he said, "and look what has become of them, of us. Idolatry, ignorance, suffering, and squalor in the name of a god who never desired the title." Guilliman shook his head and stood, pacing across the chaptermaster's sanctum to stare up at the banners hanging on the west wall. Each was the height of an imperial knight, a cascade of masterfully woven cloth depicting the glories of the Ultramarines, slain alien beasts, executed heretic despots, worlds saved and worlds burned. The chapter's proud iconography was much in evidence, but so was the Aquila of the Imperium, and there, presiding over several of the heretic designs, a figure with throne and halo who most surely be the Emperor. "We failed, Father," said Guilliman, his words tired and laden with sorrow. "You failed your sons, and we, in our turn, failed you. And now, to compound our ignorance and vain glory, we have failed all of them too. Did Horus not say that you sought godhood? He built a rebellion upon that claim. How he would gloat to see the Imperium now." Anger surged over Lord of Ultramar, and he clenched his fist with the effort of self-restraint. He imagined destroying his chambers, tearing it apart and hurling the wreckage around like a wild beast. He dared not, lest these strangers in his chapter's livery see through his facade. Though he wrestled with despair, the primarch knew that he could not let his weakness show. Calgar, Tigerius, Agamon, all the others, they looked at him as if though he were the Emperor himself. Guilliman was painfully aware of his symbolic quality, and how desperate and dark the hour had become. He must show nothing but strength to his Gene sons, lest his despair taint their hearts too. He sighed turning his back to the banners and pacing across the room to stare through a stained glass window. Out there, across the worn-torn immensity of the fortress of Hera, Guilliman saw the sweeping bulwark where his old chambers had once been. They had belonged to his father, even before him. He had laid out his plans there, spoken to his brothers, laughed and raged, and on one occasion almost died. Now they were gone, buried beneath an ugly agglomeration of buttressing and gun batteries. It was apt, he thought bitterly. Guilliman's anger spilled over, and he spun on his heel, staring up at the woven emperor with accusing eyes. Why do I live? What more do you want from me? I gave everything I had to you, to them. Look what they've made of our dream. This bloated, rotting carcass of an empire is driven not by reason and hope, but by fear, hate, and ignorance. Better that we had all burned in the fires of Horus's ambition than lived to see this. Even as he said it, Guilliman heard the lie in his words. Amongst his brothers, none had been more idealistic than Roboute Guilliman. None had envisioned a brighter future, not just for mankind, but also for the warriors of the Legionaries Astartes. That flame of hope that had been part of him for as long as he had lived, even now, as it was smothered by darkness and woe, Guilliman realized that his flame endured. There's still hope, he told himself, turning back to the window and placing one armored palm against it. He stared out at the work gangs laboring to repair the damage of war, and the Ultramarines standing proud and determined upon the ramparts. They had been born into this dark millennium, and had known nothing but the hardship, suffering, and despair of unending conflict. Yet still they struggled on, unbowed despite the countless enemies ranged against them. Guilliman had seen a better age, one of hope and triumph. What right had he, a superhuman son of the Emperor himself, to show any less strength and courage than his followers born in darkness? Guilliman had seen what humanity could achieve. Moreover, he knew what fruits his labors had borne beneath the surface of Mars. He believed that a better future for the Imperium was still possible, but only if those who tormented mankind were first defeated. All of this misery, said Guilliman, all of this suffering and pain, it is not the doing of humanity, but of those who have betrayed us. Too long have the pawns of chaos dictated our species' fate. That must end. Guilliman felt new strength fill him. Inspired by it, the primarch took his pain and desolation and locked them deep away within his mind. But his rage he kept. That he would have use for later. There would be time to mourn, to reason, to plan anew. Now was the time to fight, and to make his father's enemies pay for every horror they had inflicted upon the Imperium.